Hi, everyone. I'm James Garbutt.
And I'm Denny Dumas.
And this is the Garbutt Dumas Real Estate Podcast.
Seems like consumers are concerned and confused at what's happening right now. There's been a lot of frightening lingo, I'd say, going around in the media, especially on realtors' social media, especially. And it's funny to kind of watch our industry adjust and how realtors that focus on specific neighborhoods throughout Greater Vancouver, their message and like what they're talking about on their social media is very, very different. Because I mean, like we've heard the words crash, we've heard the words slow down, we've heard the words like, I don't know, whatever, insert fun adjective there. But it's important to, I think, take a step back and understand that Greater Vancouver has so many little sub-markets, and it's very challenging or you can't generalize and throw a bold statement out there that crash is coming or, you know, we've reached the peak and it's slowing down.
Right. I think that there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of fear. I see it the most out of any market in Vancouver. There's so much fear because people have so much invested in real estate, and it's such a hot topic. I mean, even if you're not in the industry, you're talking about it at dinner parties with your friends. Like everybody talks about the Vancouver real estate market. So just rumors are hilarious, but also feelings and opinions on the market are really interesting. And you said it right. There's a lot of realtors even that just focus on small areas. So when those areas have changes, they believe that it's a blanketed, stat. So we're talking about the market cooling a little bit here, and we're just in the spring. We're like barely in it. I mean, it was snowing yesterday, so we're barely in the spring market, and we're seeing more inventory, which is really, really exciting to some of our buyers. They're having a little bit more breathing room, a little bit more time. Properties are still selling though. So this is what's funny is in 2019, when we had a really slow, just snail crawl of a market, properties were not selling. I was relisting properties after 12 months on the market. I have a few nightmare properties that keep me up at night still that just took ages to sell, and we're not there. We're not even close to there. We're talking about 9 days on market, 14 days on market instead of 6 or 7. So like we all need to take a chill pill and just be grateful that the market is cooling like we all wanted it to, right? Yeah. Everybody wanted this to happen, and it's happening.
We'll kind of share our thoughts on why we are feeling a little bit of a slowdown, but let's first talk about neighborhoods that are very active and neighborhoods that have felt this slow period a little bit more, maybe.
There's no surprises here. I mean, one big one is Maple Ridge. Maple Ridge has slowed. You're seeing properties sell for, like very comparable properties, sell for close to $100,000 less than properties at peak timing. And when I say peak timing, I mean like January, when there was one property listed a week, and now there's, 5 or even 10 in the same neighborhood listed. So yeah, the buyer pool has a little bit more to choose from. Maple Ridge is a really, really big one, but there's no surprises here because it's always those neighborhoods that don't usually perform the way that we had seen them perform in the last year. And they're kind of just slowly kind of creeping back to a comfortable area, which we would expect them to be. On the flip side of it, of course, we're seeing places like Port Moody. If a detached home in Port Moody gets listed, it's still really, really popular. It's still going to sell most likely in multiples depending on the pricing strategy. We see areas like Port Coquitlam where we just listed a 3-bed, 2-bath rancher, and it sold for, $130,000 over asking, and we were asking for what we felt was, a pretty hefty amount for a rancher, and we got really, really busy, and there was people that came to that from all over the city. We had people from Burnaby looking at it. We had people from North Vancouver looking at it. Our offers were from one couple in Coquitlam and one couple in North Vancouver. So just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
And those are still selling and multiples are over asking. So it's important to note, like if you're a realtor that just works in Maple Ridge, for you, maybe the market is cooling off. But for our people who work in, say, the Tri-Cities or even areas of like Vancouver East is still really busy. Yeah.
What I'm seeing is like I'll name a few cities that are still very, very active. Port Moody, North Van, East Van. They're probably the three most active in Greater Vancouver right now. And those cities, I'm seeing prices kind of plateau and hold versus the Fraser Valley versus Maple Ridge, like we just mentioned. Those have slowed quite a bit more in terms of activity on listings. And we're seeing properties not sell in week one. We're seeing properties not get multiple offers. And it seems like those cities have come off their peak pricing slightly. Let's say 5 to 7% maybe.
Yeah, it's about 5.
I don't think it's 10 yet. And maybe we'll kind of share our thoughts on where we think this spring, summer, fall will go. But that's kind of the difference for me, is that those cities that North Van, Port Moody, that were extremely active in the last couple of years and saw big price runs, they're still very, very desirable to live in. There's still a lot of people that want to live there and want to buy homes there. And I'm not seeing those come off peak pricing at all, really.
No, yeah. The good news is prices are more predictable.
Yeah.
It's more comfortable for buyers to spend money knowing that, yeah, here's some sales history, and I'm getting it for maybe the same as the last sale instead of I'm paying $100,000 more than the last sale. So it's a lot more predictable, which I think is great.
Totally. Yeah. Why is this happening?
Well, it's spring. More people are selling, so there's more listings, which is usually like the upward pressure is when there's less listings and more buyers. And right now we're seeing more listings. Yeah. So it's not science. It's just numbers. Yeah. Just a little bit of math.
It's a big part of it. And this happens every single year as we see more inventory. Buyers get spread out. And instead of getting 12 offers like it would have in January, it's getting 2 or 3, and the price doesn't go ridiculously far over asking. And then realtors and sellers start adjusting their strategy when they have seen some of their neighbors maybe not do as well as they anticipated. They're now listing closer to market value rather than, man, it seemed like the magic number in Maple Ridge for 6 months was $999. Everyone listed at $999 and would sell for 1.4, 1.5, whatever the house was actually worth. Versus in the last 30 days, 60 days, we're seeing the likelihood of getting that crazy bidding war go down. And so now a lot of sellers are listing in the range of where they actually believe the property is going to sell. And that cuts out 50, 60, 70% of the buyer pool.
It sure does. It's really nice. And we're seeing the price adjustments completely across the board, from detached to townhomes to condos. So instead of having, an open house with 50 buyers through because you have your 1-bed condo listed for $499, you're listing maybe for $550. So you're only getting the buyer pool that can afford $550. Yeah. So you're wiping out like 25 of those buyers, which is awesome because there's less disappointment, but also you're getting more, you're honing in on the buyer that's more likely to purchase the property, which I think is great.
Totally. I think a big part of it too is we've been on a crazy run since probably May of 2020 is when COVID kind of had a 2 to 3 month slowdown where not very many people were listing. Not many people were leaving their homes and going out to look at other homes. And so there was just kind of like a stall period of a couple months. And then May and June 2020, it kind of flipped really quickly. And then we've been on this crazy run for almost 2 years. So 2 years of sale after sale increasing, it exhausts buyers. It exhausts people looking for a home. And I think a lot of people are trying to take a little breather. They're seeing interest rates climb a little bit. They're seeing more inventory and they're seeing prices level out. And instead of being aggressive with the next one because the sales are more predictable, which often in times like this, you can actually get decent deals. They're taking a bit of a break, which is fairly predictable. We've seen this before, right? 2016, 17, when we saw this big run in prices, towards the end of that, it felt very similar. It felt like buyers were exhausted and just not wanting to go see 10 houses a weekend and offer on 3 of them and hopefully get one and move on to the next week. And it gets to a point where like the emotion of buying a long-term family home is almost taken out of it because you're just saying, I just need to buy something.
Right. It's true. And the buyer fatigue is a real thing. And it's hard when you see detached prices go from say 1.6 to over 2 million in an area that you thought you would purchase a home. When you get over 2 million, like the buyer pool completely changes. And so, yeah, we're seeing $2 million houses take a little bit longer to sell, but we've always seen $2 million take a little bit longer to sell. It's the 1 million to like 1.8 range that usually sells rather quickly. So we're seeing basically a pretty traditional real estate market right now. It's definitely cooled off from where we were. It's making it more tolerable for buyers and sellers, to be honest. You just have to be really careful now when you're doing the buy and sell transition at the same time.
I think we should touch on that because that is what a lot of people in Greater Vancouver are doing. And if you've been looking for a home for 6 to 12 months, like a lot of people have and just haven't got one, you likely are sitting on your current condo or townhouse or whatever you're moving on from. And those may not sell as quickly. So that conversation with your realtor, I think, is extremely important right now in kind of game planning and strategizing what that buy first or sell first is going to look like.
Right. So what we mean by that is, before everyone was, most people were writing subject-free offers and just giving the seller whatever dates they wanted, fully banking on the fact that they were going to sell their condo or townhouse in 1 week. You cannot bank on that right now. You need to be way more strategic with how your buy-sell plan is going. It's better because you can be more selective with the properties that you want. Hopefully you can get subjects and try to sell in the time that you have subjects. I still haven't seen any subject to sales. Have you?
No.
We're still not seeing subject to sales, but we are seeing properties sell with subjects, which, if handled cleverly, can give you the time that you need to sell your property.
Yeah.
But buying first, removing subjects, and assuming that you are going to sell your property in a week is not really advice that we're giving our clients.
I mean, it can be done, and it's so specific to what type of home you're trying to sell, what neighborhood you're in, and what is your expectation. If your neighbor, let's say Langley, for example, if your neighbor sold in January for 900 and you are expecting to beat that, we probably are not saying, yep, buy whatever you want. We're going to list it in a week. It's going to get 600 showings and get 42 offers, and it's going to sell for 950. Probably not realistic. To be completely honest, your townhouse is probably now worth 850. It's probably off that peak price of January, February this year. So I think as long as you have a good understanding and budget conservatively, I think it still can be done. But expecting a January, February sale price could put you in a bad situation if you're buying first.
Right. Again, it's right back to that traditional market. In the last few years, like before pre-pandemic, in the last few years, like 2017, 18, 19, let's say end of 2017, 18, 19, if you had a subject to sale or if you had subjects to sale, you were still pricing your home sharp to sell it, to make sure you didn't lose out on the property that you wanted. We're just right back to that.
Totally. Yeah. Anything else? Let's talk about where we think it's going to go. I think this is fun.
Okay.
What do we think the next 6 to 12 months looks like? And you can take this as a really broad general overview and say Greater Vancouver as a whole, or you can pick out some neighborhoods and...
Okay. So I think I think then in the next 2 months, we're going to see a lot of the market kind of exactly how it is right now. More coming on, buyers taking a little bit more time. We're going to see a few more, detached homes sell with subjects, sell for full asking or slightly off full asking as sellers adjust their expectations. I think it's going to go back into a busy fall. I think it's going to be, buyers that miss out throughout the spring and summer. Everyone starts to get a little panicky as you close in on the end of the year in the fall. So I do think we'll see a little bit of a spike in, say, October, November. I'll even say September, October, November. I think we're going to see a little bit of a bump as as two things happen. People who haven't sold yet but still want to are going to start to, recalibrate their expectations and maybe lower prices, making it more desirable to buyers. But also you're going to see more buyers hope to get something before the end of the year. And I think we'll see a little bit of bump in this fall. And I think those specifically in desirable areas, specifically the areas that we're talking about, I don't think we're going to really see it in Maple Ridge. I think it's going to completely level out areas like Maple Ridge, Pitt Meadows, and some of those other surprise areas like Abbotsford, for example, Chilliwack, those areas that we're seeing huge price climbs in the last 12 months, I think they're done. I think that's it. I think the peak has happened and that's it for them.
My guess is pretty similar. I think overall, we are going to see a slight decline across the board from peak pricing. I think there are a few neighborhoods in Greater Vancouver that just are so desirable, and their homes in those neighborhoods rarely come up for sale, that I think are just going to hold at peak pricing, which was probably February-ish for some of them. Some neighborhoods in North Van, I think up the hill in Port Moody, there's so many people that want to live there, and there just is not enough supply. And one thing I want to mention to buyers is, if you're looking for a long-term family home, don't try to time this. My personal thought is that we may see a slight dip this next 6 months. And what does that dip look like? 5 to 10% in the big scheme of things. If you're living in that home for 20 years, it's irrelevant. So don't try to time it. Don't wait. If a great family home comes up for sale that you love, that you see your family in the neighborhood that you like, buy it. Don't think, oh, there's going to be another one in a month from now that's going to be $40,000 less.
That's silly. Yeah.
The price point, the difference in how small I think this little blip is going to be is irrelevant long term. I heard on a podcast recently, buy your principal residence based on availability and don't try to time it. If you try to time it, you're probably going to lose, and then you may start seeing the market climb in potentially September, like Monica's. I was like guessing. Yeah, I was going to say guessing, and I was like, that doesn't sound very professional.
But I am guessing.
You might see it start climbing in September, and then you're buying a house that you don't really like because you're fearing that the market's going up again.
Yeah. No, when it comes to principal residence, buy the right one for you and your family. And yeah, the 40,000 thing is hilarious. And a lot of people try to be the smartest guy in the room and outsmart the market and save a few bucks. And rarely do you actually hit it just right.
Yeah. My other comment for buyers that have been looking for 6 to 12 months that are maybe feeling this buyer fatigue, and I mean, like, on the realtor side of it, when we're working with buyers in the last couple of years has been completely exhausting. So we totally understand that you are probably sick of how crazy these last 2 years have been. But I'd say don't give up yet, because I think the next few months, potentially 6 months, could be a little bit subdued in terms of activity, and could actually be the difference maker. I think a lot of people, like I said earlier, a lot of people are going to take a bit of a breather this spring potentially. Don't be that guy, because you maybe this might be what you need to get into that neighborhood that you've been looking at for 2 years.
Right. Yeah, totally agree.
All right. See you later. Market update. What is it? April 13th, 2022.
7:46 a.m.
Let's do another one. Yeah. Perfect. Let's do another one in June. And we can tell everyone how right we were.